All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Chris, head of product, and this is Brett, our head of growth here at Opal Labs. Here to talk about the impact of distributed validators on Ethereum staking. Just by a show of hands, who's heard of DVT or distributed validators? All right, yeah, a few of you. That's good to see. Much more than last year, and actually proud to be the first talk this week on distributed validators. I think there's 6 or 7 talks and panels, so it's a growing point of discussion. So we are Opal Labs. We're working on we're a research and software development team working on proof of stake infrastructure for Ethereum. We're made up of 23 core team members, 15 advisors across the world. We're building tools to enable trust minimized staking, and we're enabling Ethereum stakers to permissionlessly run distributed validators. So today we'll talk a little bit about what is DVT, our design philosophy, as well as the progress, our roadmap essentially, and what's next. So what are distributed validators, or what is DVT? So DVT is a protocol that allows validators to be split and run amongst multiple machines. We call these machines nodes, and they operate in a cluster. So in the Web 2 world, or traditional tech, if you have a website or you have servers or APIs, and if your website were to go viral or your servers were to go down, we have DevOps tooling to spin those up and make sure that they're up and online. Well, DVT brings that, brings highly available software deployments and makes it a standard for validators. So this addresses several issues with currently running a validator today. Software inevitably will crash. It doesn't stay up forever. Hardware needs to be maintained, brought down, and spun back up. And so DVT allows you to have one node or several nodes within your cluster go down and still be operational online. Additionally, private key compromise and Byzantine behavior. So if your machine were to be compromised, or a set of the machines would be compromised in the cluster, there's no impact to the validator. So how does DVT work? So it starts off with a configuration, and then we do what's called a distributed key generation to split the validator's private key into multiple parts. So this year is the year of the spork. So you can imagine if you have like 4 prongs of the spork, you set up like 4 nodes in the cluster, and one of those prongs were to break off, you can still run you can still use your spork, or you can still run your distributed validator. So in the DKG process, we'll do the private key split, and just 3 of the 4 nodes need to come together using threshold BLS cryptography to perform the duties of the validator. And it's not just for a 3 of 4. You can set up a 5 of 7 or a 7 of 10, anything in between, even slightly larger than that. So if you had 10 size nodes in your cluster, 3 of them could be down and 7 could still keep you operational. So who can benefit from DVT? Really just anyone running a Ethereum validator today. Liquid staking pools, right now they have to effectively trust their operators with keys and to not be slashed. And so you can set up your operator set in a cluster and allow for one of those nodes to go down, or if they needed to eventually remove an operator from the set because they went Byzantine, the cluster can do that and continue validating online without any interruption. Staking providers as well can build distributed architecture, and they can also set up a multi-org cluster with other staking providers to have a more decentralized solution. Home solo stakers or at-home validators, they can build a more resilient validator, so they can have their validator at home split into 4 parts. They can put 1 node in AWS, 1 in another cloud provider, 1 at home, 1 in their home office, and if one of those were to go down, they're still up and running. And we've seen a growing use case for communities and DAOs to run validators on behalf of their organization, and this allows for communal operations. So rather than just trusting one member of the DAO with the funds and running the operations of the validator, you can do this in a communal fashion. So yeah, just want to highlight that we're not building a liquid staking pool. We're not a staking provider. We're building software to enable all of these products. So if you're staking on Ethereum, whether it be using one of these other products or doing it yourself, you get a net benefit from DBT. So I'll just touch on our DBT design philosophy. So we built our DBT implementation, which by the way stems from the Ethereum Foundation research several years ago. And we built it in a way that we wanted to make sure that validators today, or that we would build a DBT solution that would be more performant or equal to validators today, with the added benefit of resiliency, decentralization, and security, as we touched on the previous slides. And then also want to highlight anti-correlation. So we did not build a validator client. And the reason why is that we want to make sure that DBT itself doesn't become a vulnerability. So if we just went and built a client and we had like a 0-day bug, it could actually impact the entire Ethereum staking ecosystem. If, let's say, we're running 10, 20, 30% of the stake is running on our DBT implementation and there was a bug there, it could actually have a huge impact. So because of that, we believe that DBT is best designed as a middleware. So how this is set up is we have Charon. It's a Golang-based DBT middleware implementation, and it sits between the validator client and the consensus client in the Ethereum staking stack. And this allows you to come to the table with in your cluster with actually 100+ different configurations of execution clients, consensus clients, your validator clients, and of course our middleware solution as well. And so the middleware client Charon will come to consensus with the other nodes in the network, and then pass off the message to the validator client to perform the duties of the validator. And who here recognizes this little rhino here? Who's seen that before? Yeah. All right, so that's Leslie. So a few years ago, a couple of us from the team got a chance to work with the Ethereum Foundation on building the Ethereum staking launchpad. That's still up today, maintained by the EF on launchpad.ethereum.org. And it ran throughout the testnets in early 2020, and then later on, December 2020, helped everyone walk through the Beacon chain launch, setting up their validator. So that helps you walk through creating a validator with a single private key. And I'm happy to announce that a couple months ago, on the anniversary of the Beacon chain launch, we released our distributed validator launchpad, which walks you through the process of creating a distributed validator and the DKG. You can actually scan that QR code there, and that will take you to our deployment for our testnet. So yeah, last I'll just touch on before I hand it off to Brett, how to create a cluster. So you can walk through the UI, give it a name, also determine the size of your cluster, put in the addresses for all the operators if you're running it as a group, and then select the amount of validators, your ENR, which is effectively a way that the other nodes in the network can identify you, set your withdrawal address, fee recipient. Then you go to the terminal, just like as you did with creating a validator with a single private key, and run the DKG for your group. All right, I'll hand it off to Brett to talk about the progress of where we're at in our testnets and Mainnet.
All right, thanks everyone. So yeah, what I wanted to talk about today is where we're at with DBT. And so DBT as a concept actually started a few years ago and now has become a critical part of Vitalik's Ethereum roadmap. And as a middleware implementation, been working with the entire staking ecosystem to get DBT to where it is today. Whether it's our 25,000 plus community testing at-home validators using distributed validator technology, or professional validators, liquid staking protocols, et cetera. Everybody's really had a hand in getting DBT to this point. One big part of the progress to date is the testing roadmap. We have run one testnet so far, both with at-home validators as well as professional validators, kind of in two different tracks. That is being combined into a single track going forward to make sure that when we test and develop DBT, that it's addressing the needs of all types of validators in the ecosystem. So a little bit about our last testnet, which was called Athena. This ran from July to December of last year. And we had 100 plus distributed validator clusters sped up in 40 plus countries. So really seeing participation from across the world in running distributed validators. We also partnered with a lot of existing staking communities like eStaker, Bankless, et cetera, Node Operator Association, to get involvement in the entire community in deploying and testing DBT. And we've also run pilots with professional validators like Lido. And what I want to do is share a little bit about the performance of the early testing, because one of the biggest values of DBT is letting at-home stakers now run nodes that have similar performance to a lot of professional validators. And we actually saw that in the Athena performance test results. You could see like the top 10% of our validators, at-home validators, saw uptime of 99%, effectiveness in the top percentiles. And so this is really hard to achieve today if you're staking by yourself. Now, similarly, with professional validators like Lido, we saw a lot better performance as well in the distributed validators setup that they had. And so this is, again, a technology that benefits everybody. We are now currently on our second testnet called BIA. Again, this is both for at-home validators and professional validators. We launched it about 3 weeks ago. And the goal was to scale deployments both for at-home validation as well as professional validators. And what's been really exciting to see is that in the last 3 weeks, we've signed up over 850 plus at-home validators. And this is a distribution of people running 4 nodes, 7 nodes, 10 nodes, and it's thousands of people across the world running distributed validators. So the energy from the entire community of wanting to participate in validation has been proven in this. We've also signed up 60 plus professional validators in 14 plus multi-cluster orgs. And so you're seeing the likes of different operators professionally collaborating with each other for the first time instead of running validators completely by themselves. And this is providing much better resiliency and safety and security for the entire network. So one really cool thing I wanted to point out is, and the screenshot's a little bit fuzzy, but this is our Discord community. And really, we saw people at home organizing around the world just organically through the Discord. We opened up a channel called BIA Find a Cluster. People posted a message saying, you know, I'm a validator. I'm located in Asia. I want to join a 4-person node. You know, here's my motivation for doing so. And people just kind of self-organized to create these distributed validators around the world. Really, really exciting to see. Very hands-off from the core team at Obleton doing this. And also, this is just some of the leading validators and liquid staking protocols that are participating in our testnet. Again, 60 plus organizations, really representative of the entire staking ecosystem, pushing DBT forward to provide better security and better decentralization for the entire community. So I'm sure at this point you have a question. When mainnet? That's a common question, I think, for everybody. And what I wanted to share today, and we announced this actually a couple days ago, is we have the first Ethereum mainnet distributed validator up running today. This was launched at the end of December last year. You can follow on Twitter. We actually created a specific handle to update the community on what's happening with this mainnet distributed validator. These are running on nodes purely from homes in 3 different countries, in Ireland, Estonia, and Canada. And again, continuing the results that we're seeing from our testnet, this mainnet validator is performing at the top 1% of all validators as according to Rated Network in the last 30 days. So really, really exciting to see the high performance of this. Just double clicking into that, if you look at all the key metrics around performance, uptime, effectiveness, inclusion delay, it's performing at or near the top of all of those metrics. And so again, it's really exciting to see now that at-home validators running machines, you know, sitting in a living room somewhere, working together can have really, really good performance. It's going to improve the inclusivity of who can be a validator in the future. So we are about halfway, just from steps-wise, on our road to mainnet in V1. The goal is to launch Obel V1 in a broader mainnet deployment within a year. And the phases next, we're taking a phased approach to deploying this just to make sure as we increase the pool of who's running distributed validators that everybody is successful. And so we're taking, we have an alpha launch coming up here, and then a beta launch later in the year. And in between, we're doing an attack net just to make sure that from a security standpoint that we have all our bases covered. So we're going through audits right now as well. So long story short, we're getting there to really close to Mainnet, and that's happening later this year. So I'm sure many of you are wondering, how can I get involved? And really, if you are interested, or if you are a validator today, join a Discord community, participate in the Be a Testnet, whether you're part of a professional validator entity or you're running nodes by yourself. I think this is a critical technology primitive to adopt and to get involved in. So please do so. And then also, if you're not running validators and maybe you're just staking ETH on some kind of service, I think it's still important to educate yourself about DBT. This is a critical primitive on, again, the Ethereum roadmap, and it helps to understand it so that you can better secure your stake whoever you're trusting your ETH with. So there's a lot of materials created by Obel, by the community around DBT. That's just the list right there. Feel free to check it out. And we have 4 minutes left, actually, so we can either take questions now or take questions on the side, but I'll pause there. Any questions? Who's that? I can't see. The light's blinding me. Can we get him a mic or?
Hey, all right. So I use people like Lido, Rocket Pool, Coinbase as a provider, pay them a fee to run the infrastructure, etc. You guys have done a test with Lido, and I saw that. What kind of incentives exist for people like Lido to adopt Obel versus other providers other players who are competing in the DBT space, aside from the clear benefit that it provides them less slashing risk, etc. But how do you see that from you need to compete to get these deals done type of thing, and what incentives lie there? Thank you.
Yeah. So we are working on a potential ecosystem fund, but we haven't solidified anything firm there yet. But I can just touch on the added benefits to liquid staking protocols or pools as a whole, which is that again, they can rather than having having to trust their operators to not be evil, they can actually just set up a cluster of their operators or a set of their operators and vote it in through governance. And then if one of the operators were to go Byzantine, or even a subset of those, if they have a much larger cluster, that they can add, in the future, they'll be able to add and remove those operators from the set. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question, but nothing firm yet on direct incentives, if that was the exact question.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, I think just from a design standpoint, the fact that we took a middleware approach is very important because it allows staking providers and validators to create different setups, different client configurations, different client combinations, and it reduces any kind of single point of failure in their network. So just from a pure design standpoint, the fact that we didn't create Obel DBT as a validator client or as full stack liquid staking protocol. The goal is to help the players in the ecosystem better make their networks more resilient, more decentralized, and stable in the future. So.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thank you.